Anyway, these fellows have gotten nearly every government in the world to owe them considerable quantities of money through various chicaneries, and they control, of course, income tax, government finance. Wilson, for instance, the current Premier of England, is totally involved with these fellows and talks about nothing else, actually. They organized these mental health groups which sprang up simultaneously all over the world, and anything that has mental health in it, as in its name, or mental hygiene, or other things of that character, such names as that are all part of the organization, which stems from these less than a dozen, really, men. Now, this is very interesting because we innocently moved forward in 1950 and came straight across this very, very broad plot. If there was a cure to mental illness, then people would say you had better send him to an auditor, and would begin to ask questions if someone was electric shocked or given a prefrontal lobotomy, whereas only by electric shocking and prefrontal lobotomies could they effectively remove their political enemies or objectors. Now, of course, these fellows are very suppressive indeed, and they are actually quite miserable. They are there fighting the Martians, and everyone and anyone is their enemy. They are very badly served. Any of their people can be bought for £100. These fellows are unable, of course, as any suppressive, really to complete a cycle of action, and they always choose the wrong target whenever they go about anything. They have failed in nearly every part of their mission, except this one of making every government bankrupt and owe them fantastic sums. Now, these chaps control newspaper chains through one of their number, Sir, I don't know if it's Sir, but it's Cecil King, and these newspaper chains go down into Southern Africa, they go into Australia, they go into, of course, all parts of the world, and this newspaper chain was what was being used to try to give us a bad name. It was very interesting that the only effort they ever made was simply to discredit us. That is what they could be counted upon to do, simply discredit us and discredit the workability. There is no faintest doubt in their minds but what our technology does work, because many other such activities as subbub and so forth have gone on unmolested by them. It is only the intensely workable technology of Scientology which has attracted their ire. They have collected rather interesting files on us, our people and organizations, and their orders concerning what to do about this as part of their files all makes very interesting reading. We, of course, have full copies of their files. It was, of course, their bad luck to tangle with someone who had been trained in the field of intelligence by the Allied governments, which is myself, and they had insufficient security and insufficient loyalty amongst their own people to keep out the intelligence agents which we sent in against them. That is a very cloak and dagger activity, which is more or less over at this time. We have, however, our own files on them, and a corrupt lot they are. I think we probably have enough to discredit them utterly if we ever published what we knew. But our position with regard to this dozen fellows, I think they number about 10, really. Count in a couple of their major henchmen and you have a dozen. I think probably that They will never be successful at anything. Suppressives seldom are. Gradual inflation is leading them forward to where even their own personal fortunes will probably be eclipsed in the debacle which they themselves are manufacturing. Gradual inflation of money will, of course, make theirs worthless, too. Now, these people are not our major objective. We are not even vaguely dedicated to their destruction. Otherwise, we long since would have utilized the information which we have on them. If you were driving a fire engine toward a raging fire and some cur dogs rushed out to bark at your wheels, I don't think you would stop and begin to fight the cur dogs, unless you were quite mad, of course. And that is our position. There is a fire which we are en route to put out. And this is the line we are traveling, and this other is merely a sideshow which has been impeding and has made the work relatively difficult. It is rather hard to drive with a dozen cur dogs getting in underneath your wheels and around and about the fire engine. But you see at once that the world is not full of people who are against us. As a matter of fact, they went much too far, and the public has now begun to turn in our direction. They said too much which was untrue. The man who was hired by Sir William Carr, one of these fellows, to smash Scientology through the press, was made the editor of the London Daily Mail. He published in his own column a great many vicious things concerning Scientology, and at the end of the road, the newspaper had lost 80,000 circulation, and he was dismissed. Further, this was the only London newspaper which engaged upon a program of that nature against Scientology. Recently, some magazine has written the most interesting letter I think I have read for some time. They wanted to know when they could interview me, because they had to have a story on a man who was changing our times and who was this and that, all very laudatory, rather amazing. The state of the FDA is amazing, because in their press releases, which they have handed out, they have said that they had to be very careful with me because there was no telling where I might turn up. And they went on for many pages saying how Scientologists were quite elusive. And the whole tone of the thing is that they were afraid of us. And this is very interesting because we don't happen to be after them. But now the attack is on the basis that we're after them. They are not after us. As a matter of fact, if they only knew it, we couldn't be less interested. The program which I am laid down and embarked upon in January of 1963 has been brought off to total success at the moment through the world, aside from a few yapping voices heard here and there. Things have never been quieter than they are now. We're winning through this rather easily through the great alertness of organizations and their staffs, and through the services of intelligence officers, and through my strategy on the matter. Mary Sue's extremely good work, and overall coordinated performance by us, and not permitting ourselves to be distracted from our main purposes, has all come out toward a very high win for us. And amongst all those, I have been able, despite all of these other things that I had to do, to bring off and bring forward to its total conclusion the research and so on, up from clear to OT. Well, now, as you may have suspected, I do not necessarily lead a quiet life. I was not much made for an ivory tower or even a desk. And my adventures during the past few months have been rather interesting, to say the least. So long as we are elusive or Fabian, we grow strong. So I have examined these statistics, and we have grown in numbers to the degree that nobody could quite put a finger on what we were doing. Therefore, I have maintained considerable security and shall continue to do so on the activities in which we are engaged, but that does not make them a secret, of course, from Scientologists. It has been my lot to introduce technology which was antipathetic to the best laid plans of mice, and to suffer the consequences for the next many years. And the cycle of public opinion is now rising again on the subject of myself. I was supposed to be, according to the press, a complete devil or fiend, and now it seems that I am a man who is changing our times and all of that sort of thing. Well, I frankly could not care less what the public thinks about me. I am solely interested in getting the job done.